the Chinese Grand Prix report, the green light given for Bahrain, and much more in this week's Lewis Round F1 update. So we'll start off then with the Chinese Grand Prix, and what a race. Once again we are being spoilt in 2012. A third different winner in 3 races. Nico Rosberg picking up his first win of his career. Well, with Mercedes surprising the field, a lot of the, including myself, a lot of the teams expecting Mercedes to fall back during the race, and many people thinking that the Sauber of Kamui Kobayashi would be a favourite, along with the McLarens of Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton. But it wasn't to be. The Mercedes turned out to be a very quick car. May have been down to the fact that it was cold temperatures in Shanghai, ever dipping as the race went on, but really close action all race. We haven't seen a race like it for a long time. It was very much like the lower categories where you have such big fields close together, nothing between you. Great race. Michael Schumacher very unlucky. I reckon he would have been on the podium, probably a second place if it wasn't for the pit stop error that forced him to retire. Lewis Hamilton, what a race from him, having a 5-place grid penalty for changing his gearbox. Started 7th and came home to finish 3rd once again. Jenson Button, he started in 4th for this week's race, but he as well had to come through the field. He might have had a chance of winning if it wasn't for a pit stop. A sticking wheel nut was his issue, costing him 6 seconds, but much more as he fell into that pack. But the race lived up to its expectations for being for a track punishing on the tyres. Sebastian Vettel trying a 2-stop strategy, same as Rosberg, who won the race, but Vettel pitting a lot earlier than the German, his fellow German, and it caused him in the end, last 5 laps, in his own words, he couldn't put any more into it. Romain Grosjean, and he's the driver who got his first points in Formula 1 after only completing 5 laps so far this 2012 season. He managed to complete a full race to come home just behind Sebastian Vettel. He would have, if there was one more lap, I think he would have been able to pass the German as well. So you won't be too displeased with that, with the 2 Red Bulls just ahead of him. But Lotus overall, I think, will be disappointed, especially with Kimi Raikkonen getting so close. He had a podium position in his grasp, but he pitted really early as well and tried a 2-stopper for the race, but the last 5 laps, or last 5-6 laps, he just lost all that. The tyre just fell off the cliff and he just fell down the order. Within 2 laps, I think he lost about 7 places. Right, let's move on to more news. Bahrain Grand Prix has been given the go-ahead. It was given the green light on Friday, just I think during the first practice session. The FIA has, in a statement, insisted that the Bahrain Grand Prix will go ahead. Now, last year's Bahrain Grand Prix, of course, was cancelled. It was going to be the opening round of the 2011 championship, was cancelled because of unrest, civil unrest in the country. There has still been protests, nowhere near the size as it was initially, but not enough, at least from both sides, the FIA and the leaders in Bahrain themselves, saying it's fine, there will be that you can host a race here. It's not like the case of last year where the kingdom, the prince himself of Bahrain, declared the fact that we shouldn't race and pulled out of that first round. It's going to be a very important weekend for Bahrain and for Formula 1. Sport-wise, we've got a fantastic championship, but politically-wise as well, a lot of risks, potentially high risk. We could potentially be thinking, well, I don't see what the fuss is about. We had a fantastic race, no troubles at all. For this year, though, we're going back to the circuit that was before 2010. 2010, if you remember, used a modification to the track. It made it longer. Very Mickey Mouse. Wasn't very. I thought you couldn't overtake that on that new part. To me, there was no use in having it, but it made it one of the longest circuits on the calendar. It was a very long lap then, but they've revert back to that old setup, which I think is better. Especially with the new Pirelli tyres, we could have a much more exciting race in Bahrain than we have in previous years. Now, the news as well, Eric Boullier, who's the Lotus F1 team principal, he's shown his frustration at the fact that he hasn't been able to get 2 cars finishing in the points in each race so far. Lotus have finished in the points in every race, but only with 1 driver, both in Australia and Malaysia with Kimi Raikkonen, and this weekend, or last weekend, in China with Romain Grosjean. The Enstone-based Alfa have been one of the several teams to make a clear step forward this season. However, despite consistently strong qualifying performances as well, Grosjean third in Australia, Raikkonen, he would have done better if it wasn't for his grid penalty, but Grosjean still did well, I think it was 5th position, and Raikkonen starting 4th in China as well. So they have, along with Mercedes being one of the best teams in qualifying, have yet to truly capitalise in the race. It seems in parallel, yes, Raikkonen was very unlucky. I think Lotus can put it down to a bit of bad luck and a bit of driver, especially with Romain Grosjean in Australia. That was down to the driver, but Raikkonen, they made a gamble. 10 laps to go, Raikkonen was second and looking on the podium for sure. Then in those 10 laps it all fell apart. That's how such a fine line, Formula 1, and strategy making decisions, that it can just either make you look like a hero or make you look like a fool for trying out that strategy. I think Lotus will get it right. Will Bahrain be the race they do? And finally, Formula 1 may not be heading to New Jersey as was once expected. Bernie Ecclestone has been casting doubt for next year's race in 2013. The USGP will return though this year for the first time since 2007, with the new track being built in Austin, Texas, known as the Circuit of Americas. The Texas race was expected to be joined by a further race in the USA in 2013, with a picturesque street circuit along the Hudson River. However, it now appears that organisers have jumped the gun. Ecclestone is unsure as whether or not the circuit will be ready in time. He's been quoted to say, maybe the New York race will be in 2013. It's a when, 2013 or 2014. This is the first time that any questions have been raised about this race. This is an intriguing story and you will be kept up to date. Well, that's it for today's F1 update. Please check www.lewisroundf1.co.uk and Lewis Round F1 on Facebook and Twitter. I'll be back next week with more news, but until then, have a great week. I'll see you then.